everyone and welcome back to the channel. Over the last few years, building a PC has become more confusing than ever. Every single month we get a new processor, a new graphics card, a new benchmark, a new best gaming CPU. And yet, more and more people are spending massive amounts of money on systems that are not actually fast. Because the problem today is no longer raw performance. The problem is balance. In 2026, it's incredibly easy to build a 2,500 euro PC that loses in gaming to a smartly built system costing half the price. And the interesting part is that most people don't even realize where they went wrong because the hardware industry has completely changed. AI changed the market, ray tracing changed the game requirements, resolutions increased. And modern GPUs have become so powerful that many CPUs simply can't keep up anymore. Today, it's no longer enough to just choose the best processor or the best graphics card. The real question is, how do you build a balanced system? Because there's exactly what separates a PC that only looks good on paper from one that actually delivers the experience you expect when you launch a game. Today, we're talking about real bottlenecks, mistakes that destroy performance, how much VRAM you actually need in 2026, and the smartest CPU and GPU combination for every budget. So let's begin. AI changed everything. There's a problem that almost nobody talks about enough. And this problem affects every PC build in 2026, and that's artificial intelligence. Over the last few years, major companies started buying enormous amounts of hardware for data centers and AI models. And when I say enormous, I really mean enormous. Thousands of accelerators, absurd amounts of memory, entire racks of GPUs. And the effects are now becoming visible directly in the consumer market. DDR5 RAM is much more expensive than it should be. Certain graphics cards disappear from stock instantly, and prices fluctuate constantly. And this is exactly where one of the biggest mistakes people make when building a PC begins. They invest too much into the platform and too little into the graphics card. In the past, that wasn't necessarily a tragedy. But in 2026, the GPU controls the entire gaming experience, especially if you play at 1440p, ultra-wide, 4K, ray tracing, or path tracing. That means every euro invested poorly can drastically reduce final performance. And that's where the real discussion begins. What is a bottleneck? You've probably heard this term hundreds of times. Your processor is bottlenecking, your GPU is too weak, your system isn't balanced. But the reality is that very few people truly understand what a bottleneck actually means, because the internet treats it like something catastrophic, as if it must be completely eliminated. But the truth is much simpler. Every system has a bottleneck, always. Whether you own an A100 PC or a monster with RTX 5090, there is always one component limiting the performance. And the goal is not to eliminate the bottleneck, the goal is to have it in the right place. In gaming, most of the time you want the graphics card to be the limiting factor, because that means you're extracting maximum performance for the money invested. Let's imagine something. You have a limited budget and you're building a PC for 1440p gaming. You choose a Ryzen 7600X and a solid GPU, but you think then maybe I should get a stronger processor. You spend another 200 euros and upgrade to a Ryzen 9700X. Sounds great on paper. Except in gaming, the real difference might only be a few percents. Meanwhile, if that money had gone into a stronger GPU, the difference would become immediately visible. More FPS, better ray tracing, more future headroom. That's the difference between a build designed by marketing and one designed intelligently. One of the biggest misconceptions in the PC world is the idea that hardware behaves the same way in every scenario. It doesn't. A resolution completely changes the balance between the CPU and GPU. At 1080p, the processor matters a lot, especially in competitive gaming like CS2, Valorant, Fortnite, Rainbow Six Siege, and Battlefield. In those games, the system is trying to push hundreds of frames per second, and CPU performance starts to become far more important. But the moment you move to 1440p or 4K, everything changes. The pressure shifts heavily onto the graphics card, and that explains why so many people make the classic mistake. They buy an extremely expensive CPU, then run out of budget for the GPU. The result, a system that looks incredible in a spec list but doesn't actually deliver the gaming experience people expect. And honestly, in 2026, the difference between a mid-range GPU and a high-end GPU matters far more than the difference between two good modern CPUs. The VRAM problem. A few years ago, 8 gigabits of VRAM felt completely fine for almost everything. Today, things are getting complicated because modern games are consuming VRAM at an insane rate, especially if you enable ray tracing, high resolution texture packs, frame generation, DLSS quality, or high resolution mods. And the scary part is that many modern games simply aren't optimized like they used to be. Sometimes the issue isn't even raw GPU power anymore, it's memory capacity. That means two graphics cards with similar performance today could deliver a completely different experience just in a few years from now, simply because of VRAM. And this is where the industry is starting to shift in a very interesting direction. 16 gigabits of VRAM is becoming the new sweet spot, not necessarily for today, but for how well your system will age over the next few years. And this is exactly where smart PC building decisions start to matter. Because sometimes the best investment isn't in the fast processor, it's the graphics card that gives you more longevity. Let's see some CPU plus GPU combos that actually makes sense in 2026. Right now, the hardware industry creates a very strange illusion. If you spend enough time on YouTube or Reddit, it feels like everyone is gaming with 4K ray tracing, OLED monitors, and RTX 5090s. But reality is completely different. Most gamers still play at 1080p, and honestly, 1080p Ultra still looks fantastic in 2026 if you choose the right hardware. The problem is that many people buy horribly unbalanced systems. CPUs that are too expensive, GPUs that are too weak, or builds that look amazing on TikTok but doesn't deliver real gaming performance. So let's talk about combinations that actually makes sense. Not for synthetic benchmarks, but for people who want high FPS, ultra settings, good temperatures, and PC that won't need upgrades anytime soon. If I had to build a gaming PC today with maximum value for money in mind, I would probably go with Ryzen 5 5600 and RTX 7600 XT with 16 gigabits of RAM. And honestly, this combo is insanely good for 1080p ultra gaming. The CPU is still extremely capable even in 2026, while the GPU offers enough VRAM that you won't immediately start running into limitations in modern games. In titles like Cyberpunk, Warzone, Forza Horizon, Hogwarts Legacy, Red Dead Redemption 2, this type of system delivers an excellent experience without major compromises. And maybe the best part? You don't need insane cooling, massive power supply, or a premium motherboard. It's simply a smart, balanced build. And right now, a complete system like this usually lands somewhere around 1,000, 1,200 euros. For the money, it's incredibly hard to beat. But maybe ultra graphics aren't your priority. Maybe what you really want is 240 Hz, ultra low latency, and ridiculously high FPS in competitive games. In that case, the priorities change completely. Here, I rather go with Ryzen 7500F and RTX 5060 Ti because in competitive gaming, CPU performance becomes much more important, especially in games like CS2, Valorant, Apex Legends, Rainbow Six Siege. This kind of system can push insanely high frame rates without costing as much as a high-end monster build. And honestly, this is where many people realize they don't need an RTX 5090 to have an incredible gaming experience. Right now, a build like this usually ends up somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 euros. But the experience it delivers in esports titles is genuinely excellent. Now there's also another category of gamers, the people who don't want to change or replace their PC anytime soon. They want something that lasts for years, handles future games properly, and doesn't become outdated after 2 or 3 years. One of the smartest combinations right now is Ryzen 7600 plus an RX 9070 with 16 gigabits of RAM, because now you're entering a very comfortable performance zone. with flawless 1080p Ultra, with excellent 1440p gaming, lots of VRAM, and a modern AM5 platform. And maybe the biggest advantage of all, it's upgradability, because later on you can replace just the GPU or the CPU without rebuilding the entire system. And moving forward, for that matters more and more. Right now, a build like this is usually around 2000 and 2300 euros. And honestly, for most people, this is probably the real sweet spot in 2026. In 2026, the debate between Intel or AMD is more interesting than ever. For pure gaming performance, AMD is leading. The X3D processors are incredibly efficient and ridiculously fast in games. But that doesn't mean Intel disappeared. Intel still has real strengths, productivity, multitasking, and certain creative workloads. The real issue is something else. The IM5 platform still has a future. Meanwhile, many Intel platforms are approaching the end of their upgrade cycle. And that means when you buy into a modern AMD platform, you're not just buying for performance for today, you're buying an upgrade path for the next several years. A few years ago, building a PC was pretty simple. You bought the strongest components you could afford, and that was basically it. But today, hardware has become much more complicated. AI is changing the market, games are becoming more demanding, ray tracing consumes massive amounts of resources, and the difference between a good PC and a bad one is no longer just raw performance. It's balance, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you spend. What matters is how the game actually feels the moment you press play, and sometimes a smartly balanced system can easily outperform much more expensive PCs. And honestly, maybe that's the most interesting thing about PC hardware in 2026. Not raw power, but how intelligently you use it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this on the channel, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. See you in the next one.